Okay, it is 9:55 a.m. I had one trade with CYDY. In theory, this was like a morning panic bounce play, but I barely made anything. I just didn't like the way it was trading, and I'll go over what exactly made me sell, even though it is uptrending. I do have an alert with EBML, and this one is trying to break. Not too interested in it, but I'll watch. I guess I'll make an update later. I'll be looking at EBML. Alright, I am back. I will be looking at EVML if it tries to break past 1 penny. It's already impressive that it's breaking past this 86 level, which was the high a bunch of times, and it broke out of this range. I had an alert if it was going to break out of this range. I've been trying to use alerts more, and yeah, it made a move from the 85s. It's now in the 90s. Big seller at 96 that could get taken out, and maybe this thing could be something if it tries to break 1 penny. That could be a setup. I did trade CYDY. I didn't like the way it traded. And this was, again, a morning panic bounce play. I did buy 250 shares at 940, and that was at 68.83. So that was right here. I was in at 68.83. So right around here is when I got in. And the idea was that it was downtrending. It was looking like it was going to break this trend line as well. And then I got out of it the next minute. I sold some at 94.5, which was right here the very next minute. And then I got out of the rest at 69. So I barely made anything. And why did I get out of it? Because I didn't like how we were just sitting here in this candle and there was so much volume going through. As you can tell, there was a massive amount of volume and people were just constantly dumping their shares at the bid, which was at 69, and it just looked like it was going to break. And I've seen this a lot of times with morning panic bounce play setups that fail, that you think the bottom is in, it starts to uptrend a little, and then we have massive volume, and then he eventually wipes out the bid, and then it just downtrends and keeps making a leg lower. This one actually held itself together. But the fact that it had so much volume here and it also had a decent amount of volume here and it wasn't moving was just really throwing me off, and it ended up being a very large person supporting 69. It didn't let it break under it, but that was a little too nerve-wracking for me, and that's why I got out for that reason. It did continue the uptrend. It got to 69, 70, and it even got above 70, although not with much volume, so I don't know what would have been a realistic place where I could have sold. But as you can see right now, the bid is 70, which is not too far from my best sell, which was 69.5. So it just didn't really work that well. AXXA, I didn't really like it. Yeah, I didn't like it. It just it worked initially. I could have been in at 156 or 158, and it did get to VWAP at 164, but then it came back under, so it would have had to have been a very quick trade, a scalp basically, because it didn't offer that much momentum. And that is pretty much it in terms of setups besides EBML, which doesn't look like it's trying to hold this uptrend, but I'll continue to watch it even though it has a spread and it doesn't have that much volume. I'll make an update later. Just one tiny trade with CYDY. It wasn't really ideal. It did work out. It did uptrend. I just don't like the price action that it was having before. It was a confirmation whether or not it was going to continue the uptrend and be a morning panic bounce play or make a leg lower. It's 10:59 a.m. and I had a trade with FXLV, and this was a much smaller position. I traded just 100 shares of this because I trade listed stocks with a $5 risk level. And I was watching it throughout this entire time, just thinking that maybe it could try to make a move towards VWAP at some point. And it wasn't until much later in the day around here when I had an interest in it. I did buy 100 shares, and that was at 81.69 at 10:51. I might zoom in just because it doesn't look that nice, but I got in right here at 10:51 at this 81.69 level again, right around right here. It just looked like it was trying to turn around. There was nice price action going on, and it just seems like something that could try to make a move towards VWAP. I can't really explain it much further than that. It was just a feeling. And then I thought, worst case scenario, I'll be cutting the trade if it breaks. I believe I was risking 80 cents. And then, worst case scenario, it has a panic because it's downtrending and it just broke 80 cents. And I'll be out maybe, in theory, like 5 cents below my entry, which would be a $5 risk level. It was working. It did uptrend. It was taking a while. There was a point where it just wasn't really trading anything in these candles right here. And yeah, I like actually the way it looks with extended hours. I did sell half of my position at 83.78, and that was at 10.54 right here in this first candle that it was showing a sign that it was uptrending, and I sold half just to be able to hold on to the rest of my shares better, knowing that I at least sold half, so that if it just has a blip right here and then immediately sells off, I'm not salty that I didn't sell into anything towards the upside. It's still uptrending. It's still trying to hold this trend line, not from the top, but from the bottom, which is still impressive. And VWAP is 92.55, so yeah, there was plenty of opportunity here. And then I sold 25 shares at 86.53. That was at 10.57. Right here when it was uptrending at this level around 86.53. And then I thought, all right, with my last amount of shares, my 25 shares left, I'm not going to sell that at all unless it breaks the trend line, and then perhaps if it breaks the trend line and it shows that it might try to regain itself immediately, I'll still hold on to the position. But in this candle right here, when it broke the trend line and it wasn't looking like it was just going to briefly break under the trend line and regain itself very quickly, I did sell my last piece, and that was at 86.75 right here at 10.59. And yeah, plenty of room for more improvement because it's clearly trading much higher now at 92. It's trying to make a move towards VWAP at 92.55. It doesn't have to get to VWAP. It could, just top here, or maybe it can even break above it and uptrend more. Maybe make a higher low and continue to reverse some more. But yeah, this stock is just beaten up, and yeah, that's just something I need to keep getting better at. Something I've been trying to do to sell better is sell, all of my position as soon as it shows that the uptrending trend line is breaking. But this is not the first time I've seen something like this where it breaks the trend line, consolidates, holds itself a little, and then it continues to uptrend. And now it's trying to regain the trend line as well. So yeah, that's pretty impressive. And we've officially hit past the VWAP line a few times. I'll make an update as to what this one does ultimately. I don't think I made too much because I did only trade 100 shares because I was trading a $5 risk level, but I will make an update later. It is 11:22 a.m. and I want to go over some thoughts with FXLV, and also note that it did get as high as the 94 level, which was around that VWAP line, as you can see here, and it didn't get much higher, but this one at least got to VWAP. And sometimes they don't even get to VWAP, they just uptrend a little and they just round off right under VWAP. This was a higher low setup, and now that it has been some time, I do want to go over some thoughts as to why I got in this setup in the first place. It was a bit iffy because this is not an OTC, and what I'm going to say is normally what I see, or at least try to find on OTC setups that are doing something like this, that has a big sell-off day and it eventually makes a move towards VWAP like it did here. Number one, I got in this setup because it looked like an inverse head and shoulders. As you can see, in my mind, this was like a shoulder, this was the head, and then this was like a very congested shoulder because it was probably maybe short sellers or just a lot of people selling, and it wasn't able to make a move until it pops off. And that's pretty much the main reason why. But also the second reason why I got in, because it was also a really good time period. It's not an exact science, but a lot of these stocks that are down a lot, that do make eventually make a move towards VWAP, does it around this 11 a.m. time period. And this one in particular was a bit earlier, around the 10:50s, but anywhere from like the 10:50s in this case to 11, 11:30, 12. It just seems like a really good time when a lot of these things that do eventually make a move towards VWAP, because not all of them do, they might just stay at the, at its lows the entire time, or maybe even downtrend more. This one worked out, and this was around that same time period. So that, with the additional thing of it being an inverse head and shoulders, is why I got in this setup. And I could have actually been long this. This could have been like the inverse head and shoulders, the second higher low, and this would have been nice. 100 shares at, I guess, 86, 87, and then a sell into VWAP in the 90s. That would have been a profitable trade, even with just 100 shares, because I am in theory trading a $5 risk level. Although I guess in this case, if I'm in at 87, yeah, let's say 87, and I'm gonna cut it. If it breaks 84, I mean, yeah, it might be a realistic amount, 100 shares, and still be according to a $5 risk level if it breaks the day low. I'm not assuming at this point if it breaks, not the day low, but this part right here, that it's going to make a big red candle, and probably will be a bit slow like it has been, especially because it's been later in the day. But now we have another higher low, and now it's getting above VWAP. I'll make an update as to what this one does. The only thing that I would have liked to have done differently with my trade here was my first sell was just too much. It was half of my position, and it makes sense because I was a bit anxious about this setup, especially it being a listed stock. But I would have been fine if I sold maybe just 25 shares, because it's starting to work. Give it a chance for it to work, but let's just sell 25 shares so that if it doesn't work out, it just uptrends a little and then it sells off. I at least sold a quarter of my position, and then it's going to help me be maybe slightly profitable, or break even, or not lose as much if it downtrends. So that would have been the case with that. It would have been ideal if I sold just a quarter, because I was just trying to sell a piece so I can have more patience. And then again, if it doesn't work out, I at least sold a piece. And then the last two pieces were fine. I do like that I sold my last piece when it broke under the trend line, but I do need to try to, see if it breaks the trend line like I did here, an uptrending trend line, and then it consolidates perhaps a little bit, and then it starts to uptrend. I want to be a part of that. So maybe if it breaks the trend line, I'll sell a piece, but maybe still have another piece left, so that if it continues to uptrend, it could be something that I can sell into, and that would be a lot more profitable. Or if it breaks under the trend line, I sell that piece, and then I have that last piece, and it just keeps downtrending. Then I'll just be out of that last amount, and I gave it a chance for it to have been a much higher move that I could have sold into. So that's basically my thoughts with this one right here, and I will make an update as to what it does eventually. EVML is uptrending. Again, I had my alert when it broke this range right here. If this thing traded better, I probably would have traded it. I don't like the way it's trading. That's pretty much it for right now. I don't think I'm going to trade anything else. I do, again, regret selling half of my position when I should just be selling a small amount to be more patient. That's all I have for right now. It is 7:37 p.m. and I am here to call it off. Overall, I'm going to be up on a day $4.19, and that was two trades with CYDY, which did work out. I just didn't really like the way it traded. And then that second trade with FXLV, this thing is really impressive. It got as high as $1.50, and I think I did the best with what I was able to do at the time. I do need to start moving forward from not just holding on to my position better and then selling everything when the trend line breaks, but maybe even still have a tiny piece left, so that if it breaks a trend line, it consolidates ideally. It can be something I can sell into a higher uptrend, which was exactly the case here. I could have taken the inverse head and shoulder second higher low setup, and this was another move. It even got above VWAP here, and then it started to now transition from trading below VWAP to trading above VWAP, and this was a pretty nice setup that also happened. And yeah, I definitely have to keep getting better. This was super impressive. It was so big in terms of how much it spiked, very similar to EMGE, the way it spiked the other day in the morning, that it was just pretty massive from the 22s as high as the 33s, which is a lot. And yeah, I just have to keep getting better. EBML, I really wish this thing traded better. If it traded nicer, I would have been a part of it. At some point, I would have traded it, but it just didn't really do anything that nice in terms of price action. that's it for today. A really cool trade with FXLV. A lot of things I could do to get better. That's all I have for today.